Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Overnight Action Report here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group, securities offered by MoneyBlock, and we are here to wrap up what's been going on with the markets overnight. Taking a look at the Japanese Nikkei, it finished today lower about 0.5%. The yen continued to display some strength against the dollar. This move we saw had begun yesterday, and it has continued overnight in the close of the session here. Now it's their Friday evening. There has been a little bit of a suggestion right now through a few reports from some Japanese think tanks that the Bank of Japan may be looking at some new policy changes. They may be seeing some inflation on the forefront. We're going to see if they're going to actually come up with any policy changes as far as their rates are concerned. That would be monumental. But the notion of the Japanese having higher interest rates, well, that got the banking sector going. As a matter of fact, taking a look at the sector, Mitsubishi UFJ outperformed. This is a stock that I keep an eye on only because it is about almost 3% of the ETF that I watch, which is the EWJ that tracks Japanese stocks. It's about 2.2% of that ETF. It was up about 5% overnight. So that was a pretty decent move. We'll keep an eye on that to see if actually that impacts EWJ in the market hours here in the States. EWJ went out last night at 49.47. The weekly options that are expiring next week are pricing in the potential for the stock to move up or down right around 90 cents. So there's around a 2% move being priced in. Vol's still relatively inexpensive. So that's just telling you that there's not a heightened expectation of huge, violent moves right now in the ETF, EWJ, or in Japanese stocks at this juncture. Taking a look at Hong Kong's Hang Seng, slipped about 1.4%, with basically none of the major sectors finishing the session in the green. The sector that took the biggest hit was the gaming sector. Right now, that is interesting since we saw that win last night, and over the past few sessions, some gaming names here in the United States were outperforming. We did see Sands China actually come in down lower by about 4%. EWH is the ETF that you want to watch if you are looking for a vehicle that tracks stocks in the Hang Seng. EWH closed last night at $20.98. The monthly options that are expiring in the third Friday of December, they're pricing in the potential for the underlying to move up or down around 60 cents or roughly around 3% based off of its current price right now of EWH. So we could see a little volatility there, but not much expected. Now, taking a look at the Shanghai Composite in China, lost about 0.9% overnight. There wasn't much news that came across the wires, but there seems to be a lot of discussion that maybe there could be some weakness that was attributed to the latest pullbacks that we've seen in the Shanghai Composite that was related to some profit taking, and that makes sense. We've seen that a little bit with some of the moves that we've seen over the last few sessions here in the United States. These valuations have been pretty fast as far as popping to the upside. We could see that there is some profit taking. And also, don't forget, and we'll talk about this in a second, that Italian referendum is still on the docket. It's going to be on Sunday. There could be some profit taking in front of there because we really haven't been able to quantify what the ramifications of what that would possibly mean. We've seen some energy names in China start to get hit, especially oil-related names, so we'll keep an eye on that. FXI is the ETF that I watch. It's trading at 37.59. The weekly options that are expiring next Friday are pricing in the potential for the stock to trade either up or down around 3% or a dollar range. Vol is still relatively inexpensive. Now, we also saw India. The Sensex, it had a big hit overnight. The session closed out down 300 points on the Sensex, or 1.2%. The rupee, which is the Indian currency, it couldn't sustain its earlier gains, and once the rupee started to fall, the markets tended to fall with it. You saw banking names like PNB and Kotak Bank. They dropped more than 2%. We're also seeing that Tata Motors. Tata Motors is also one of the biggest components of the ETF I watch to track Indian stocks. EPI is the ticker symbol. It lost more than 3% because they released their November sales worse than expected. EPI is trading at $20.06 right now in the pre-market. It's down. It's the weekly options that are expiring next Friday are pricing in a 56-cent move, either up or down. That's about 2%, and we're starting to see that implied volatility is on the move. So there is a heightened expectation of further potential violent moves going into the end of next week. Now let's turn our attention to Germany. Now I'm looking at the German DAX right now, and I know that you all know that I'm looking at it because I keep looking down. It's down about 1.1%. The weakness comes across pretty much on most of the sectors within the DAX. Again, with that Italian referendum on the docket, there is a lot of volatility now that's starting to rise up into that vote. The areas that showed the most weakness right now early in the session are the exporters. You're seeing BMW, Volkswagen basically have about a 1.2 to 1.7% losses respectively. You're also seeing that the banking sector are also under pressure. You're seeing Commerzbank as well as Deutsche Bank down basically about 3% right now. And then you'll have some small retailers. Adidas is the most notable one. That's really the silver lining right now in the DAX, up about 0.3%. Taking a look at the FTSE, UK lower right now, down by about 0.8%. You have miners and financials weighing on that market with relative weakness. BHP Billiton is also down, is Rio Tinto. You see those two stocks down about 2.1% to 3.5%. You're also seeing that Barclays, RBS, Old Mutual, and Prudential are all showing losses in that financial sector and banking sector between 1.1% and 3.1%. EWU is the ETF that I take a look at to track stocks in the UK that trade on the FTSE. Went out last night at $30.10. The options are pricing in the potential for around a 2% move, and vol is relatively inexpensive, so we're not expecting any big violent moves going into next week's expiration of the weekly options. Now, France's CAC surrendered about 1.2% so far in the session. Financials are leading the slide. You have AXA, BNP Paribas, Credit Agricole, all down between 1.5% and 2.6%. Now, you're also seeing, again, exporters. Looks to be some profit taking happening here. Renault and Peugeot are two of the biggest ones that are down 2.3% and 1.7% respectively. And then EWQ is the ETF that I utilize to just monitor what's going on with the French stocks that trade on the CAC. EWQ went out last night at $23.46. The monthly options that are expiring in December, third week, they're pricing in the potential to move either up or down around 84 cents. So that's roughly around a 4.5% move. Vol, again, not on the move. And then finally, Italy. Now, Italy, believe it or not, is really the best performing Borsa right now index in the European Union. It's only down about 0.8% early in the session. Obviously, you've seen a few headlines that have come out in the last 24 to 36 hours. One most notable is that the ECB did say that they would come in and stabilize anything that's going on in the Italian bond market. They would be a potential buyer of Italian bonds to mute some of that volatility that we've seen there. That has helped support the market there in Italy. But again, we're going to be waiting for the results of that referendum, potentially reducing the powers of the Senate in Italy. That referendum will be voted on, and we'll know the results on Sunday. So keep an eye on the action on Sunday, and we'll be jumping online Sunday evening at 5 Central, 6 Eastern to talk a little bit more about the week and setting up. EWI is the ETF that I track for Italian stocks that are trading in there. EWI has been on the move. It's been to the upside quite a bit this week. It's trading at 21.98. The weekly options that are expiring next week are pricing in a whopping $1.57 range, either up or down. That's a 7% move that right now is being priced into EWI, the ETF that tracks Italian stocks. Vol is expensive. There is a heightened anticipation of potentially violent moves, and now you know why, because of the referendum. Once that vote is known, you're going to see that volatility come out, and the stock and the underlyings in Italy will start to do what they're going to do based on that result. So you can keep an eye on that and always stay in touch with us here at MarketStream.live. We will be on at 9:30 Eastern Time. We will be doing What's Hot Now on the Open, so please join us then. Till then, have a great trading day.